There we go.
Enhance.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Enhance. We are on the most
Behance.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were telling me to enhance so that we could see where the murderer was getting away from. Today, we're solving more mysteries, Kyle. That's what we do on this program. Hi, I'm Evan.
News to me.
Well, we solve... Look, people, here's the premise of the show. I'm Evan Abrams. I'm joined, as usual, with Kyle Hamrick. And we are here to solve your After Effects-related mysteries, your motion design problems. That's the mysterious element that we're talking about. If you were with us 2 weeks ago, and Kyle, you were with me 2 weeks ago, I remember it.
Probably.
Yeah. If you weren't, that's crazy. But 2 weeks ago, we were talking about paint-on techniques. So we were brushing it up. This is the infamous wig episode, the ASMR triggering episode. We're going to be a bit more high energy today.
Yeah, so. No wig today, as you may have noticed. Just my normal, naturally curly hair, but it's contained to this part.
Yeah, and Cher took all her wigs back from me, so that's fine. So we are going to be talking about more paint over techniques. So the last time we were using painting as transition, but now we're going to sort of celebrate the paint in its own right, basically.
What's the hand gesture for that?
It's a high five.
Okay.
So that's more of an audio-based thing.
Yeah, you had sort of a modern dance thing going on for a minute there, so I wanted to see where you go.
Right. So, okay, maybe I'll do like graffito tag, because that's
okay. There we go. Good.
Yeah, I'm a graffito tagging snake. If you can't tell, I've been taking improv courses, and this is the result. Kyle, should we share our screens and show people what we're going to be doing?
Oh, we can do that.
Okay.
Do you want to see my samples first?
Yeah, I think for the purpose of bouncing back and forth like a ping pong ball, let's do that.
Okay, so I have two examples, and the technical processes are very similar, so I'll probably show you a little bit of both. So I have this one, less hating, more skating. I was just looking for a clever little rhyme there. But you'll see I have some rotoed footage, obviously both video clips, and then they're cut out. And then I kind of painted on top of and underneath them. And then I also have this amazing dinosaur humor. And this is, yes, an animated 3D model brought directly into After Effects with that animation intact. So that's pretty cool, too. Now available in beta. But you can see I use pretty much the same techniques on these, which is After Effects to Fresco with a little stop in Photoshop. So we'll show you how to do that in a little while here.
Stop, drop, Photoshop. I was going to say, less hating, more skating, hail Satan. So let's...
I'm not sure that's Adobe appropriate.
That's true. We try to be agnostic here on the program.
Yeah.
Well, it's too bad because we're all about magic. that's the real problem. Okay, so, Kyle, I love those. You've got a very punk aesthetic going on. I went for a bit more of the classic kind of energy lines that you see a bit. So here is kind of a Photoshop based type of thing. So we got some basketball stock footage. Hopefully people are seeing this. I don't even know. And
I'm seeing it.
Then Kadunk. So this involves several kind of paint over layers to bring that type of thing together. I have for you also a little dancing up the stairs, if you like that type of a thing.
Ooh,
so
who wouldn't?
I mean, we love dance. We love to celebrate dance, moving your body, stuff like that. But draw some energy lines on them, make it glow. And in this case, I kind of went a little bit too. I will admit that I've gone a little bit overboard with some of this drawing. Right, this is. It's still running at 24 frames a second. This is probably too much, but I went ahead and did like some gunsmoke trails and stuff on there. So for those eagle-eyed listeners, they'll really enjoy this stuff. And then because we are ostensibly here to help you save time, and a lot of our methods are pretty labor-intensive that we're going to talk about. I wanted to do one that is like keyframe-based. So this type of compositing, mostly keyframes that are going on. We're going to leverage some tracking, some masks, some mats, like this type of thing. And it's blobulous enough that you say, like, well, Evan, you don't need to redraw all of those. No, I don't, and I won't. So that's what we're going to be looking at there. So that's what we've got lined up for you today. 5 minutes of intro to the stuff.
Yeah.
So,
well, you gotta tell them where you're going, and then go there, and then tell them where you went.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, like writing an essay, I suppose. Kyle, maybe you could stall for just a couple minutes. I wanted to set up a couple other things real quick. Namely, I want to make sure that I'm recording this stuff before.
Oh, yes.
I know we forgot to do one of our rituals as we were setting this stuff up. So, Kyle,
Fire it up.
Tell the good people what we've got coming up in the next few weeks, or maybe just talk about Paintover's process generally.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can do both. I know that on April 1st, we're going to do a Pranksgiving episode. So you can imagine what that's going to be. And I say that because we've definitely figured out what it is.
Recording in progress.
There we go.
Okay, recording.
Yeah. Whew. All that comedy gold is, lost forever.
Yeah, like tears in the wind, I'm afraid.
So this Paintover process, at least for me, what I did was spent a lot of time prepping my animations in After Effects before I then exported things to do all the Paintover. So
okay.
I don't have the huge background in frame by frame animation. I've tinkered with it a handful of times, but I don't have enough experience to be able to just kind of intuitively work with stuff. And so for both of my examples, I wanted to have everything dialed in nice and tight so that I'm kind of just tracing things, honestly.
Right.
Which
now, Kyle,
I think anyone can do.
Yeah, I'm glad that you jumped on that first. I'll say that I went into motion design almost expressly because I didn't want to do traditional animation. It's too much work. I'm a lazy man. So let's start perhaps with the most manually intensive version of all of this.
Perfect.
Right? Let's get into it. And so as Kyle was saying, the process, if you're going to be doing paintovers, we want to start by selecting our stuff. So process number one. The going from After Effects to vanilla Photoshop. So your desktop version Photoshop. Hopefully everyone is clear with what I'm talking about at that point. There are other versions of Photoshop. It's on your iPad. It's on your phone. It's in your pocket right now. It's on your microwave. It's great. If you have a smart fridge, I think you could probably load it onto that. Anyway, so
I hope someone does.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you can play Doom on a smart fridge, you can Photoshop on a smart fridge. So here is the basketball that I've used time remapping. Originally, if we go to the original of the B-ball, you can see that this is in slow motion. So this was captured at 60 or maybe 120. So there's a lot of frames to pick and choose from in here. And I'm going to say this, that if you're doing this type of paint-over thing and you do it at 60 frames a second, my hat's off to you, but I have other appointments. So that's generally only paint over the frames you're going to use. So if you're gonna knock, you see I knocked this down to 24. I then knocked it down again to 15. So I was like, I'm not doing that.
I was working at 12 and 8 on my projects. Yeah, you definitely want to. Don't give yourself more work than you need to here.
Yeah. So you want to retime it. You want to get it worked down. So in the end, I ended up with some time remap frames. If you've never used time remapping, then you can always come to a layer, right-click on it, go to time, enable time remapping. And time remapping allows you to choose what frame you are observing at that time. If you're coming from Premiere, this is going to be a totally different concept of remapping time. It's going to be a little wackadoo. Because that's all.
I'll just briefly say that it is very, conceptually it's different. I like, if you're just trying to do speed ramps and stuff, I actually really like the way Premiere has it. The best way to think of it in After Effects is that you are keyframing frames.
Yeah.
Which is abstract, but you could make a keyframe on every single frame and then rearrange those in whatever order you want. Yeah. So it's a little funky.
Yeah. I think the best way to think about it is each one of these is just saying, and Kyle, I think you hipped me to this idea that the keyframe means what frame I'm looking at. And that is super helpful because that's what the readout and the time remap is. Anyway,
a video file is just one file with a bunch of images crunched into one package, right? So you're just choosing which frame you're looking at.
Yeah. So in this case, what I did was sort of just mark out some timings of things where I wanted to start going faster or slower, and that's how we ended up with this kind of speed ramp ed situation. And it's only the number of frames that I'm going to need to kind of work with. Now, from here, we're going to take this, and what you really want to do is go composition, add to your render queue, and you're going to knock it into the render queue. Now, at this point, you can be using pretty much whatever settings you want. It's totally fine. I would recommend using either a high quality or lossless, because this is going to get bumped into Photoshop, which can handle MOVs, H.264s, a bunch of other video formats, which is super helpful. But I will say that you'll probably have your best results with H.264s and MOVs in the least compressed format, right? That's generally when we're doing interchange between two softwares, we want to make sure that we are not losing a lot, but I mean, we're going to paint over it, so it doesn't matter a whole lot. And I don't think people are often hip to this idea that if you are compressing something, it then takes power to decompress it. So even though the H.264 file is so much smaller, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, well, because something has to take it apart and understand it. It's like how if you are speaking in a type of shorthand or code, like if I'm talking in just
it's faster
acronyms,
for you, but for someone else, it might take more time for them to figure out what you're saying. Yeah,
it takes more mental processing to unpack what that person is saying. So that's probably the best way. Like if it's really full of jargon. I didn't realize that I updated Photoshop today.
Yeah, this rule, by the way, applies to using MP4s in After Effects or typically in Premiere, using MP3s in those, and PNGs if you're using image sequences. I would avoid, because you have the same issue of compression that you're kind of fighting against.
Yeah. Now, from here, you could create a new file, but I recommend you just go to Open, and then from there, you want to grab the .mov. Now, the reason behind doing that by just saying Open on that is that it's going to automatically get you a timeline. If that's not open, you can find it under Window, but also that it's going to have assumed the frame rate that you were just working in. So if you send it out to that, then we're going to be working this. If people of the good chat, maybe good people of the chat, sound off if you've never used...
And the bad people, too.
Right, sorry. Yeah, you look, nasty people, you can talk to us in the chat as much as you want to. But if you've never, either where you fall on that spectrum, just let us know if you've never used animation tools in Photoshop at all, if we need to go slower with any of this stuff, because we do usually talk about After Effects here. So I just want to make sure that we are indeed... talking about this stuff. But just briefly, the timeline down here, classic timeline controls, right? It does a lot of the same things. But the things that we want to do specifically are stepping forward and stepping backwards. And unfortunately, by default, those are not mapped to keyboard shortcuts, which you're going to find really unpleasant. Therefore, I recommend that you come into your preferences, your keyboard's shortcuts. And if we just come over here into our stuff, you are going to have to kind of navigate down to timeline video. And under timeline video, I have mapped mine to Command Shift. What have I done here? Command Shift. It says comma and period. I think of those as the pointy brackets.
Yeah.
That's where my mind goes for that. But you can map them to anything. The hard part is Photoshop has grabbed almost all of the good shortcuts already, so there's not a lot. I'm pretty sure that this was overwriting something that I just didn't use, but you're going to want to be able to do that so that you can really quickly snap forward and backwards as you are working. So that's pro tips from Evan right here. Now, all we're really going to be doing is taking the B for brush and brushing it up out here. But you don't want to brush on this layer. We want to make a new layer, a new special kind of layer, where we go Layer, Video Layers, New Blank Video Layers. Oh, why did it put it over there? Phooey, right? By default, that's where it wants to put the thing. We don't want it to be hanging out over there. We actually need to select the group, I believe, and then we go Layer, Video Layer, New Blank Video Layer. And when you look at that, it's creating it at the playhead and for the duration of the thing. Now, the other thing that's important to recognize is that if you wanted this to be above or below, you drag it over here in the layer zone. See, now it's in the video group. Now it's outside of get out of the video group like that. You can see how it's manipulating on the timeline like that. So these are interconnected spaces, they're doing totally different things. And it's wackadoo. And if you, I mean, we talked about how things are different from Premiere and After Effects. Hey, here's the different third thing.
Yeah.
Now, all we're going to do is brush over top of stuff. That's it. That's all we're doing here. So use B for brush. If you have a tablet, make use of that, because you're going to get to enjoy all of the pen pressure and stuff like that. But it's all a process of literally going frame by frame, you know, and moving stuff around and just painting over things. I don't think you want to watch me do that, but as fun as that would be, I'll just say this, that when you're doing your kind of painting, you're going to be like hovering on the undo a lot, because if you don't sort of get the thing the way you want, you know, but I recommend that you work in layers. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up one of the ones that I'd done previously, right? So I have different layers for the different things that are going on. So instead of trying to do it all at once and merge that into one image, take advantage of the layers. So if I'm going to do something with the feet, for example, I wanted like little checks when he's like smashing the ground, and then when he does his fake here, like having that type of a highlight, I was thinking, well, I should do something for the feet. And if I want to treat those individually later, you got to have them as a separate layer. Now, we've got the ball trails. So I used a nice wide brush, and I'm trying to kind of just describe where the ball was, where it was going. Now, this is similar to like smears, right? And this is the idea that we are going to kind of paint where it would have smeared if the frame rate was really low. This is actually captured a high frame rate. We're not going to have a lot of trails to deal with. So you have to kind of make them up, right? We're just making up where they are. But then the place where I really make it up is an explosion that happens here. So I have the trails kind of like plorp away like this, right? They kind of like that. But I will talk a little bit, Kyle. I must talk a little bit about this explosion, because I'm really proud of this explosion.
You must.
I think I did a great job.
Especially now that you're clicking through that. Yeah.
Look, the beauty is all in the details. The devil is in the details. This is a more satanic episode than I anticipated. Let's just say that, like, paying really close attention to this stuff can be very rewarding. Where I kind of fouled up in this is that I got way too into the granular, right? Like, as we go through it frame by frame, it's great. But if we play this back at 15, we're not going to really see it that much, right? And the feeling of animation requires a lot of more smeary gestural stuff. So you kind of have to keep that in mind. But when you're thinking about kind of weights and stuff, this is hard to do. It's hard to make this stuff kind of happen, because we're not tracing anything. We're not making anything over top. We're putting wholly new elements. So I'm going to point you to, here in the timeline, a thing that you can enable called Enable Onion Skinning.
Good. There's a couple people discussing that in the chat, so I was just about to prod you to show that.
Right. Now, all good animation has layers, like an onion, like an ogre, etc. Onion skinning, if you get into your onion skinning settings right here, you can choose how many frames before, how many frames after, the maximum opacity and the minimum opacity, and just imagine that it's putting many, many copies of that over top. And really importantly, the blending mode. The blending mode is super important. The default is multiply, I think, because I'm drawing in white. I needed to use screen because it's the light things that I want to keep. Umacorn, that is a reference to Oscar-winning film Shrek. That's a lie. I don't think it won an Oscar, but Shrek is good. And
it probably won some stuff. I bet there was a Grammy for that Smash Mouth song that was so prominent in it.
Yes, indeed. Hey, now you're an all-star. Get your game on. Go play basketball. And so here, screen is the one we want. But you're going to have to dial these in to your own kind of flavor. And keeping in mind that this just allows us to kind of feel where the energy is going as we're kind of building these effects on. So if we just show the ball or just the trails or something, if you wanted to kind of get a better feel for like what the actual ball is doing without everything else, this is the best way to do that. And then you're going to be adjusting, and we're going to talk about onion skinning inside of After Effects later on, but because it's not a feature that we have, notes, put it in the forum, upvote. But this is a really helpful way just remember that you're drawing the brightest one. So you might be erasing, drawing again, erasing, moving it a little bit, trying to get it in. So hopefully these ideas have given you what you need to kind of do this stuff inside of Photoshop. Now, the other thing, it won Best Adapted Screenplay. What was it adapted from? What is the original Shrek? And someone else looked that up.
Probably a book, I assume.
There's an original book.
Thank you, Wade.
Yes, thank you.
Handling our important research here.
That's right. Producer Wade coming in with the research.
And Best Animated Feature, which I don't think you said.
Yeah, well, that just makes sense.
Back in ye olden 2002.
Yeah. So, but what I'll say is the onion skinning is really helpful for you to not get lost in the weeds and that you can really feel the direction of where things are coming from and where they're going to. And that will help you immensely when it comes to figuring out how far does this stuff need to be. And in particular with things like smoke and stuff like that like these blobs need to break up into littler blobs that have the same kind of mass, but they're getting further apart. So you really want to be able to check your work as you're going, and then they get further apart and smaller, further apart and smaller. They turn into confetti and they rain down. But you're trying to conserve that mass so that it isn't like just evaporating in no time or whatever, and you've got to really pick your moments. But I'll say this, and we were talking about this on Twitter. This is an aside. We're 20 minutes in, and I'm already wasting more time. That... We were talking about this on Twitter. I think it was Kevin Perry was talking about like animating that if you just take footage and you just compress it or you just strip out a bunch of frames, it doesn't look right because it's missing the transition between the things and it's not necessarily the most important pictures for conveying the thing.
Right.
So if you're going to be picking things out and drawing them to highlight them, you have to make sure that you're really time remapping and getting the important, interesting poses and basically trying to draw lines between them. So that's what the ball trails is helping us do in this case, that it's helping the energy that like there is no, if we don't have the onion skinning, you wouldn't see any of the arc of where the ball went. Right? It's not there because it wasn't captured in the footage, but we can draw it in this way, and that'll be really helpful to like convey the energy of the ball. Okay. Technically though, what do we do next? We save our work, right? We hit save, and then we are going to open that up. We're going to open that up inside of After Effects. You may encounter.
Can I make a quick aside here before you leave Photoshop? Okay. We did get a call out for. There's an add-in called Animating that a lot of folks do use here in Photoshop. A lot of people who do a lot of this frame-by-frame animation. So if you get into Photoshop and you're doing this and you want something to smooth your workflow out a little bit, just wanted to give that recommendation. I haven't used it a ton myself, but I poked around with it.
And for those of you who are French listeners, Kyle went to say anime dessin is what he was trying to tell.
Well, I'm saying it like an American.
That's right. Sorry, anime dessin. So that's how we'll be saying it from now on. You know, les bons dessinés, our wonderful French cartooning. Huge French tradition of animation, by the way. For those of you who are wondering, look it up. Triplets of Belleville, amazing. Actually, most French animation is amazing, if sometimes incomprehensible. So let's go ahead and get out of Photoshop. If someone could type it into the chat, that would be super helpful too.
I will type it
in. Why say it when we can actually type it? Okay, so we're done I'm done in Photoshop. I'm quitting Photoshop. I'm quitting. But do save your work. You may encounter an error when you bring the PSD into After Effects. Sometimes it'll say like, I can't find the video, or .mov is not supported. If you run into those problems, just delete the video layer out of your Photoshop file and it won't be a problem. This is... Top people are working on this. That's the only thing I can really say about it. It's been brought up in the forums a lot. I think Michael... How do you pronounce it?
Sklatsky.
There you go. Thank you. Mike had some workarounds, but the big thing is you just got to either put that in put the video in a smart object, that helps, or just delete it because we don't need it anymore. We're done. We're moving on to the next phase. So the next phase is just you import it and it'll come in looking like this. It'll look like just a bunch of PSDs in layers. And they are sequences. They have a frames per second and a time. So they're not static. They are indeed animated things. And we just layer them back over top of our other work. So if we just solo one of those on, let's bring the hoop boom on, kaboom, like this. That's it. We're pretty much done, right? That is, if you just want it like effects free, you bring it back over top. Now, you could just export out of Photoshop as a video. That's totally fine. I recommend bringing this stuff back into After Effects because then we can layer a bunch of effects on top. So for example, I've used a tint here in order to make these nice and bright pink, and a nice little glow to give those that kind of a neon vibe. With the glow, you probably need to play with the radius and the glow intensity to get that exactly how you want, and messing with your kind of A-B colors. But this is really just the way to make it happen. So we're really just choosing how these come on. The other thing I'll say is that it really helps if you simplify the video layer a little bit. So just visually, I'm using a curves and a tritone to make sure that my glowing neon parts are really standing out. So that's kind of the idea here. So just I'll describe the round trip again. We do our time remapping inside of After Effects. We send that out, we render it off, we open that up inside of Photoshop, we create video layers over top of it, we save, we might have to strip out the original video from the PSD, but we bring it all back into After Effects, and then you can layer it over top of each other in here. And we're going to be revisiting sort of the compositing in here, but that is sort of the idea. And then we got a question. What if you wanted to use a particle generator from a 3D program?
To create the trails?
Oh, well, if that's the case,
Maybe?
then you would probably need to send tracking data to the 3D program, a whole other kettle of fish. But the same idea that you would be just bringing that file or its constituent image sequences back into here and putting it there. So hopefully that is helpful for people. If you have any follow-up questions, we'll see if we get time to them. Kyle, we want to get to your screens because you are going to take this to
I know
the
this is
next
shocking,
level.
but we've overstuffed an episode here.
I know what we're doing next week, the rest of this.
I'll also make a quick call out. Neither of us thought to bring this up. There's another add-on potentially called Time Lord by Battle Axe, which is kind of a go-between between After Effects, Photoshop, and Animate. And if you're familiar with Overlord, which does After Effects to Illustrator, it's a similar sort of thing for those three apps intended to help make frame-by-frame animation in those three easier.
All right, Kyle, we're on your screen.
I know.
What's going on?
We're on the clock here. All right. So I'm going to show you kind of parts. If you folks want to see more of the dinosaur one, let me know. There's a couple things about that I want to call out, but I thought that this skater one was technically a little easier to demo here because it's shorter.
Yeah.
So you can see here, this is a pretty quick little loop here, which, I was intentionally trying to keep it short so that I wouldn't have to hand paint a ton. But like Evan was talking about, this is visually simplified. So all my footage is black and white here. And this is just 2 clips from Adobe stock, which, are, as always, we have our project files that will be available after the show at motiondesignhotline.com, which is, of course, a real website for real people, as we always say. And you'll have links to these clips as well as the project files if you want to tear these apart and poke around. But this is just one of these is a green screen clip, so that made it real easy. See, the black and white is just an adjustment layer over the top. And then my skateboard guy is also from Adobe stock here. And I rotoed him. We are talking about brushes today, so I'll just do a real quick aside, but I don't think we really have time to focus on roto brush. So I found, this little segment of the clip that worked well here, and I did a super rough cutout so that in the other comp I could kind of get my animation figured out and decide exactly how much I needed, and then I rotoed it. Because even though the computer's doing this part, you don't want to do too much more than you need, right? And just a quick reminder for folks, if you're not familiar with RotoBrush, when you're applying this to a clip, you need to double click the clip so it opens up in the layer viewer, okay? And then you're going to grab your RotoBrush tool, which is this little paintbrush and person up here. And I already have this one done and locked, so I'm not going to go into that, but you you quickly brush in the shapes, and if there are spots, like when he's on the ground, I definitely had to do some more work to separate the shadow and stuff like that. That's just how it works. It does a really good job of cutting out people, but sometimes there's details that you're going to have to work with. The biggest thing about RotoBrush is when you are done, make sure that you click this freeze button down here. Because if you don't do that, After Effects is going to keep processing this and trying to roto it for you, and it's going to be very slow when you don't want that. So when you get done, you freeze this, and then when you click back to your composition viewer, your clip will be cut out. And so here's my guy cut out, doing his little kick flip. If you're a skateboarder and you know a more official name for this trick, because I assume that there's some modifier on there, you know.
Some kind of McTwist.
Yeah, whatever. So then this is my composed animation, and then what I'm going to do is export it. Just to call this out too. Speaking of painting, sometimes you're doing all kinds of little fixes here, and this isn't quite painting, but just another frame by frame little tip. This was actually the top of his frame, so I just grabbed the top of his head from another frame and stuck it right on there. You can always do stuff like that, especially if you're affecting it heavily. No one will ever know the difference. So what I did was just exported him by himself with alpha, and then I exported the hands by themselves with alpha.
Okay.
And that is, very similar to what Evan just showed us here, but that way you have your two pieces and you can put stuff in between them. And now for the rest of my workflow here, we're going to hop back and forth a few times here. So there may be a slight pause, and I'll ask you to bear with me because there's no super smooth way to hook up my iPad without it taking kind of a second for me to approve it on the iPad. Just is what it is.
That's how it works.
So the key to now, I could absolutely bring those into Fresco as image sequences, but I would have to add those one frame at a time, and I didn't want to do that. So there's actually kind of a clever little hack that you can do using Photoshop to stick those video frames into your Fresco file. So let me show you what we're going to do. I'm going to create a new file first here, okay? And then I'm going to, if you've never done animation here in Fresco, you could just draw on your layer, but if you want to animate it, there's this little icon down here at the bottom, just two above. I don't know how much you can see my cursor here. I'm going to kind of tap it on and off a few times, a couple circles and a little play button. That enables animation for this layer, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just make a new layer just so that I'm kind of holding a static one, and then I'm going to make a fresh one here. And I'm going to enable animation. Let's go ahead and, 12 frames per second is the default. I'm not really too worried about those other things. And I'm just going to quickly do one, make another frame, two, another frame, three, okay? I'm just creating a holding pen for what I'm about to do. And in this case, I have two incoming video layers. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to do A, B, C. So I have two animated layers in my Fresco file. I'm going to go ahead and back out of this and give it just a second to sync. And then I will hop back to my desktop, and in Photoshop, that file should be waiting for me. So let's come back to my computer here and come over to Photoshop, and ding, there's the file that I just made. So let me open this up and you'll see why I'm doing this. So if you look here, we have motion layer and motion layer. These are actually just little smart objects. And if you double click on this, it opens up and it's got the three layers in it. So now I can actually take that video file, open it in Photoshop, and then cram those layers into here. And then I've kind of tricked Fresco into taking all of those without me having to do it manually. So I'm going to grab let's grab our skater guy here, and I'll just, same thing. I'm bringing a video file into Photoshop. Oops, there he is. And so he's going to open up as a video layer. Oops. And I don't have the timeline open here, but yep, I can prove to you that it is him. It is he. There's one crucial thing that you have to do here, and it's in the timeline panel, in the little hamburger menu, there's a command right here that says convert frames, flatten frames into clips. And so when you do that, it's going to flatten every frame of this into clips. Also,
Ooh.
side note, yeah, this creates some other cool opportunities that I'm probably going to leverage in the future here. Just being able to splay out your video footage like that.
Right. This is a cool line of people doing a
right?
thing.
Yeah. So all we have to do now is just clean this up a little bit. It held on to our little video group. We don't need that anymore. You can just throw that away. And then I will point out that these are actually backwards. So you want to shift select all of these, come up to layer, arrange, reverse. Okay. And that'll put them in the correct order. I found that the easiest way to bring this to where I want it is to go ahead and group these. So I'll hit Control G, and now I've got these in a group. And now I'm going to drag this into that motion smart object that I had. If you hold Shift while you're dragging stuff like this, it will drop it in the center, which is where we want it. And now you'll see it brought that group in. I'll just throw away these couple 1, 2, 3 layers that I made, and then ungroup this. And now this smart object is saved with all my video layers in it. I'm going to go ahead and save this.
And before you get into Photoshop, that was flattened to clips? Was that?
Yeah, it's called Convert Frames, Flatten Frames into Clips.
Okay, perfect.
Yep. So I'll go ahead and close this guy. And so now you can see my Fresco file has this. I'm just going to kind of let this be. I'll go ahead and save it and close it. And it'll take just a second to sync back to my iPad. But I do want to point out the things that are created in Fresco have this little PSD-C. I haven't tried to like hack this the other direction. It's possible. Maybe you could create this in Photoshop first, but it definitely works if you do it this way. And so it's just a clever little workaround so that you can kind of get what you actually want. So let me get back to my iPad here. And then you can see what I am working with. There we go.
That's right, Kyle. Show us what you're working with.
So here is that file that I just saved. And you can see it still has the ABC, but then it also has my little skater guy.
Oh, yes.
And so had I taken the time to put the arms one in there as well, you'd have both of those. But hopefully that little walkthrough shows you how to get where you're going here. So I have a copy of this that was already set up. So I just wanted to kind of point out a thing or two why I like working in Fresco here. It's really nice if you want to have some flexibility, I feel like, because one thing that you can do is actually you're animating every layer separately, but they don't all have to have the same frame count as long as they are divisible. So this animation, looks like I ended up with 31 here. I think yeah, let me just clip one off of the beginning of both of these. So we were an even 30. So with an even 30 frames, that means on any of these layers, I could make 30 frames, I could make 3, I could make 10, I could make 5, I could make 6. And so for something like a background texture, you know, let's just come in here and grab something fun real quick. Just a painting brush, something kind of big, big canvas brush, and we'll grab our lovely Hotline pink or something close to it, close enough to it. Here.
Careful, yeah. Kyle, you're morphing into Klob Hamrots again.
Yep. So something that's really cool here is that I could, maybe this is my background texture. I'll make another frame, and then I'll make another frame of this. I'll make another frame of this. And I could just paint 3 background textures, and that's going to loop forever as long as I'm mindful of making sure that it's divisible. And so I took advantage of that a lot, where like my background might actually be, in the finished version of this, the background is like 1 layer of 6s and 1 layer of 5s and 1 layer of 3s. And so you can just make a couple textures like that, and then they'll all overlap each other in different ways and look super varied and different.
Right. Yeah, yeah. You're getting 30 frames by drawing 5 frames.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So I really like being able to kind of leverage that. Of course, as you are getting to the real stuff here, one thing I found is that as I was actually working through these animations, I turned the onion skin off. It's just a little toggle right here because I was much more just tracing my footage,
Right.
either kind of above or behind. So I didn't really need the onion skin so much. Let's go ahead and turn off that background. So I was just doing uh, a lot of times even just like creating all the frames in advance here so that then I could easily flip book through this and kind of maybe find one in the middle and okay, cool. Well, I just wanted to do kind of a cool, fun trace on him, and then I can do all my little Tracy business. I mean, you get the idea here. I'm not going to go through the whole animation, but this is the process for both of them. And I love all the brushes in Fresco. It's super fun and natural. And I don't know how much you can see on the camera here. I'm just using an iPad and the little stylus,
Yeah.
Apple Pencil, but this is like 3 versions ago. Um, and there's like great, dynamic watercolor and ink paint in here and stuff. So you can do lots of really neat stuff that looks super natural, and it's very, you can do it on the go. I did most of these on an airplane,
Right.
honestly. So
And like we're using it very abstractly, but you could be using
yeah,
this for a kind of rotoscope type thing if you really want to bump up the
yeah,
fidelity on this. Like this technique of this is how you can get really nice motion references into Fresco, which
totally.
I don't know if many people have attempted or done this, but I love these life hacks. How do we get back, Kyle?
Back to what?
Well,
I never
how
came back. I just I
oh
finished these here in Fresco, and I'll go ahead and open up one of the more finished ones real quickly. I know we're short on time. Um, I would like to show the dinosaur one, but that's going to take longer to open.
true.
Um, as this is opening, I'll just call out this dinosaur. Like I said, is a fully animated 3D model that I was playing with in the After Effects beta, which we just got as of last week. You should absolutely download the beta, download some animated 3D models, and play with it. It's super fun, especially if they're dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so this is the finished version of the skater one, and you can see, you're probably not going to pick up on it, but there's lots of like what I was saying, where I was kind of duplicating something or letting it, these textures, for example, are probably only like 3 frames. And you can see I have lots of grouping going on to kind of simplify what I'm looking at here. When you are finished with your animation, you can click on this little upward box here, and that's your publishing. So you can publish and export, and then you can just export motion as the bottom example here. And I just exported MP4s straight from here. You can go
Right.
ahead and tell it how many times you want it to loop right in here, and then it'll generate the frames and export it for you.
Oh, beautiful.
Obviously, there's no audio, but you can add that in later.
Yeah, if you put this on Instagram, you can add some Instagram's audio, whatever you like. Okay, I was curious if you kicked it back into After Effects.
Nope.
But there we go. Mystery solved. Solved 2 mysteries today. Okay.
I'll say my dinosaur one has a cut in it, and
Right.
honestly, that probably would have been a little bit easier had I actually treated those as 2 separate Fresco things. It has this shot and then this shot, because then if there was something that only existed in part of it, I had to like make a bunch of empty dummy frames to fill it up.
Right.
So, you'd need to kind of be thoughtful about it, but I was kind of exploring this process as part of making these too.
True. Okay. Well, we've got some more process to show.
Yeah, we can do it.
Okay, let's jump into Evan's screen real quick. So, what if you are afeared of Photoshop? What if you don't want to open up Fresco? What if you want to stay in After Effects where everything is safe and nothing can hurt you, like me in high school? So, retreating into my computer. So. Here we go. I got a nice little video, a little stock photo of someone really celebrating the heck out of a business lunch or something they just did. And I want to do paint over stuff on this. Up at the top of the menu, we've got a brush tool. Wah, wah, wah. But immediately you
Which
see...
I believe we mocked a bit last show.
We did, and boy, am I eating crow today. So if you want to use the brush tool here in After Effects, you have to go into Layer View. So you double click and you enter the Layer Zone. I've got it kind of keyed up to be a separate window right now, so we'll do that. You can see it's pretty much the same, but you can pick your brushes in the brush window, and you've got your paint stuff going on here as well. Now, let me just go ahead and take Dance Up the Stairs. I can put it into a new comp so that I can kind of start this over from the beginning. Because what you're going to notice when you do this up for the first time is that it adds an effect on here. So let me just draw something on this. Look at me draw.
Yep.
It adds
Good
the
job.
paint effect. And within here, within the effects, within the paint, you're going to notice a wackadoo new interface down here that there are... you're going to find some fun new stuff. We've got like sub layers in here that you can expand and stuff. When you make a brush stroke, what does it mean? The paint window is saying, what does it mean when you make a brush stroke? Now, you could be drawing a single frame. You could be drawing all the frames. You could be drawing a write-on, which will add keyframes for the start and end. These are vectors. They are vectors. They're not rasters, which means you can alter your brushes after you've drawn them. Downside, not that many brushes. We don't have that many brushes going on.
Yeah.
But if you are going to use, say, a pen, and I've got my interface is a little bit borked up here, so let me just kind of make that. Let's try to make that good. So here we go, 50% on either. So if you wanted to, oh, now my tablet is turned off to conserve its power. Thank you, tablet.
Yeah, helpful.
What a fun feature. Thanks, buddy. Thanks, best friend tablet. Okay, so we can have this kind of respond to pen pressure. But notice that I've got it set to single frame. I have the path selected. When I redraw, I am changing what that path was. So what you want to be doing is you want to be going like to the next frame, and like that. And if you want to be creating more strokes, make sure you don't have anything selected, because that's going to help you out much more. Because now we're just adding more and more strokes. Make some stink lines or something. But this is the methodology. You go next frame, you draw some more. You go next frame, you draw some more. All of these things are a little bit difficult because...
You got no onion skin in here.
We ain't got no onions, sans onions over here.
Yeah, where are the stink lines coming from if there's no onions?
Yeah, if there's no onions, how can we have any stink lines? So let's go ahead and draw some stink lines now that I'm already kind of on this idea. And I want to go to the next frame, and I want to draw some more stink lines, but I want them to be similar to the other stink lines. So, therefore, I recommend you've got your composition up over here. You've got your layer up over here. By default, your interface probably looks something like, not like that. No one's interface looks like this. It probably looks like this. So you really just have to grab this, dock it next door, and we are going to add the echo effect. Echo, 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 proximity effect.
I don't get it.
So yeah, we're going to put the echo on here. We are going to make sure that our echo time is in fact related to the actual frame rate of our composition here, which is 25 frames a second. So echo in time is going to be 1 divided by 25. Now that would be a frame in the future. We want to make sure that we are indeed using negative, so it's frame in the past. It's currently set to add. You might want to use a composite in front, a composite in back, something like that, but you need to decay. And now we are going to indeed be able to see the results of our excellent stink lines that we are going to draw on.
Sorry to this stock clip actress.
They knew what they were
Although
saying.
we don't know, maybe she was stinky.
Yeah, we don't know her life story. But this is a way that we are now able to get some onions in here, right? So we can increase that number of echoes. You got to tweak your decay if you really want to see them. But this is going to give you access to a kind of onion skinning. If you want to flip into the future, you just change this from negative to positive, and there you go. So this is the way to do some onion skinning and to draw the stuff. Mm-hmm. Now remember, mode normal, please, and then RGB. You could be just drawing the alpha. That's fine. But what I'm really going to do with this is I'm going to take this away. Like, It's hard to composite when it's really stuck on the image. But if you just copy and
Yeah.
paste the paint effect onto a solid, then
Mm.
that's going to give you all of these. That's why these are all broken out onto different solid layers.
Which
So
you could not have done in the first place because you can't. You'd be stuck opening the solid in the layer viewer, and you wouldn't really be able to see what you're doing.
exactly, you would not be able to observe the actual thing that you were drawing. Is the problem now? I've gone ahead and I've gotten a little bit more advanced with it. So these, I decided, well, what if this lady's shooting off her finger guns? Kapow, kapow.
Yep.
Well done, cowboy. Cowgirl, cow person.
Cow person.
A cow person sounds like a centaur that's half cow, but that's fine. We haven't quite figured out the ranching equality yet. But in this case, we've got these layers here. And so I just copy and pasted the paint effect so that it now lives on this. And I disabled it on the original. And this allows me to do things like put some blurs, use some levels, use some tint. And I've used a few copies of this. So there's a few copies of this painty effect. I am really impressed with how quickly the paint effect renders. Like we have dunked on it in the past because maybe there have been some updates to it that, or maybe,
I just really wish that you had more brush
yeah,
options.
really it's just hardness and angle, and that's it. So if there was a way to make that a little bit more, maybe some native onion skinning, what do you think? That'd be pretty great. But in this case, right, what I wanted to talk about just a little bit was the idea of just taking it away and then putting some stuff on here. Now I've got one more technique that I want to get to. Please
We've got like
enjoy
4 minutes. Should we? I mean, do what you can.
I'm going to crush it. You're going to love this.
Okay.
Actually, maybe it'll be more of a tease for what we're going to deal with next week, right?
I think so.
Okay. So the thing that we didn't really get to is this one that actually involves no manual painting whatsoever because that would be too hard. And this is a very simplified thing. The methodology for this one, I will tease now, is a combination of tracking. Now, why would you open the layer over there, sir? I want to go to composition view. Oh, right, because I got a brush.
Yeah, because you did it.
Yeah, it's me. I have to blame myself, which I refuse to do. But in this one, what we've really got going on is, first off, some tracking data to track those glasses, right? I cheated. I got a clip that was very trackable. All right, I did it, Kyle.
Yeah, that's okay.
The solution for this mystery is me. That I tracked, because this person's glasses has these little highlights on it, and that makes it super easy for tracking. So
that's just using your resources well.
That's right. You get your null out there. You stick your gleamy parts to that null so they seem like they live in the scene. You then key out. You find a way to mask those out. So we've used mats. This is actually tracked to the thing, and then those are changing along with. We'll get into this more detail next week. That's a tease for the next week. So make sure that you are following myself at EC Abrams and Kylosaurus Rex, and that you are checking out motiondesignhotline.com, where an archive of all of our stuff is at. If you
Today's project files will be up there shortly.
At some point. And if you want to get on the pirate feed, youtube.com/@motiondesignhotline. That's where you can get our off-week episodes when we are not, clogging up Adobe Live with our stuff. But hopefully this was helpful to you. If you have any questions about this, you can ask us anytime, any place, mostly social media places. If you stop Kyle on the street and
I'll talk about After Effects until you make me stop.
Yeah, much to the chagrin. But if you see him at a convention or anywhere out in the wild, please do indeed come up to us and talk to us. We're nice people, I promise. But that's pretty much it.
At least.
I think, yeah, it's true. This is a character. I'm really unpleasant in person. That's just a fun fact about me. Kyle, anything else to say here in the last dwindling twilight of our program?
If we got a couple seconds, I'll just call out. Wade made a good comment using the brush tool in After Effects, but then sort of actually using it to reveal a texture layer so that you can get some texture. But that's kind of a good call out to our previous Adobe Live episode where we did a lot of techniques to create brushes in After Effects, and you might see me in a silly wig. So if that interests you, check out a few episodes ago.
Yeah. Always watch all of our back episodes because you'll
Mhm.
unravel the mysteries of this show. But yeah, I think we'll try to maybe clean up some of the stuff. We'll get into that dinosaur next week,
Yeah.
and we'll get into this glasses thing and maybe some other applications of that. So I guess we're not done with painting, and painting isn't done with us. It keeps drawing us back in like Van Gogh, I guess, and we'll retire to a monastery. Anyway, we don't want to get cut off by the band hammer, so thank you all so much for watching. Thanks for being with us. Follow Adobe Live on all of its platforms. Ask us questions on the forum. Stay creative, be kind to each other, and I guess we'll see you all next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Oh, there's the button. Nope, that's not. That's me. Ah!